We're live.
Perfect.
Welcome to Office Hours, everybody. My name is Nora. I'm here with Sto, and this is Office Hours with Nora and Sto. We provide practical advice to independent artists and creatives of all kinds. And today we're talking about, I swear to you, I really thought we've done this episode before, but we have not officially done this episode, although we talk about it all the time. And so today we're talking about one of the questions that I think we both get asked the most, which is, how do I get press? So that's what we're getting into. Welcome. Make sure if you're here and you're watching us, hit the subscribe, hit the like, all that good stuff. It helps the algorithm. It helps create new normals in the music business. But if nothing else, glad you're here and you're learning with us.
Yeah, definitely hit subscribe if you can. I think we hit 570, like maybe just before we hopped on air. I might be wrong about that though. But yeah, we're really thankful for all of you that are subscribed. 30 away from 600. So yeah, share it with your friends and whatnot. And yeah, press. 62 episodes deep, and we have not done a proper episode on how to get press. I feel like honestly, if you go back and you run through, if you've actually been watching the rest of our episodes, like we've really talked a lot about press throughout all of them, or not all of them, but like a good portion of them at some point, in one way or another. But for this one, we really wanted to make sure that we like directly answered the question of how to get press. And so then the first thing that of course comes to mind is, what is press? Because even over the last like week or two, actually, I've had people ask me, or get like a newsletter mixed up with press and all this other stuff. So yeah, let's start there. What exactly is press?
So, and I think newsletter is a good example. I would say press is anything where someone else's platform is talking about you. So that could be anything from someone else's newsletter. That could be traditional like newspaper articles. That could be video interviews. That could be podcasts. That could be Instagram Live with someone else. That could be being
I'm
a
trying
guest.
to find like the proper definition, but there's so freaking many. But
it could be being a guest on someone's Discord. So press really, and maybe this is broad, but I think for our purposes, a broad definition is what works. Press is anytime someone else is talking about you and your work.
Exactly.
For it.
Exactly, because that is payola. And we talked about that just a few episodes ago, actually. And so, yeah, press, again, anything where someone else is discussing your work and art and stuff like that. And again, it really is not limited. Like a lot of artists think immediately blogs, interviews, but it really does extend further out to other things. Whether it's podcasting, whether it's, playlisting is a form of press if done correctly, of course. But again, it's just where someone else is featuring your work and what you're doing. So while I want to answer this question, there are multiple ways to answer this question, of course, but like, why is press important? I think is the next like natural question. And why do so many artists, I'm not trying to steer a certain answer because of course we won't feel the same way about press, but like why is press actually important before we get into how to actually get it?
Yeah, and before I answer that, welcome to everyone who's joining us live. If y'all have questions or things you want us to talk about or your own answers to these questions, like drop it in the chat. We'll include it in the video. If you're watching this after the fact, drop it in the comments. We always come back and answer and respond to everybody. I'll tell you why press is not important.
Hold on, not yet.
Okay.
You're going too far. Too fast.
So press is important because, one, it helps you tell your story. And we talk about this all the time, which is music is emotional. The relationship that fans have with their artists is emotional. And so what better way to start to build that emotional relationship than to tell your story? And there's something about the way our brains work. When we hear someone else talking about you, we hear it differently. We receive it differently than if you're talking about yourself, right? It's why word of mouth is so effective. It's why when your homie vouches for you, that carries a different weight than you come and you say, oh, I'm so great. And we roll our eyes at it. So press lets you tell your story, lets you build that emotional connection, lets you get in front of new people, and establishes a really like an archive and a documentation of who you are, what you've done, what you're doing, what you want to do, where you've been, where you're going. Um, it's that storytelling component.
And I think I really should have phrased it in why is press useful? I think is the better way, because I think we can make the argument for why press is important. We'll get to that at the end, mostly because we want to make sure we're answering everyone's question and whatnot. So I think, and Nora nailed it. Like it allows you to chronicle your journey and really show that other people are showing you love and showing you attention and stuff like that. And if you go back to our episode, which I guess we've kind of done it backwards, but when we talk about how to use press, it's really a way to celebrate with your fans and to really show like, yo, like, because it really is, it's their support that helped you get this press. If you're not being supported by your fans, it can be difficult to get press. It doesn't always work the other way around, but again, we'll get to that later. And so it is, yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry. I'm going to cut you off. So finish your thought.
I was just going to say is that it is useful, but it's not necessarily important. That's all I was going to say.
Yeah, it's also like press is part of the proof. So, when I get artists all the time who say things like, "Oh, I'm the hottest thing," or "I'm up and coming," and those are just words, right? They don't really mean anything. But when you can point to press, and this ties into the how to use it, but when you can point to press and say, this blog called me X, Y, and Z, or I've been featured in these 6 podcasts, or then you have something to back up the hype and the hyperbole of, oh, I'm the hottest thing in my city, I'm popping up, I'm this, I'm that. And so when people have that proof, or at least some like quantifiable data, then it carries a different way, and people look at you differently, they treat you differently, they interact with you differently. And oftentimes no one wants to be the first. So when you have someone else do it, it opens other doors for you to go to other places or other things. And so all of that kind of ties into both the why it's important, but also the how you should be able to use it.
And I don't like making this direct comparison to stuff like this, but it really is like a resume builder type thing. Like it makes it so much. It does make it a bit easier to land opportunities and stuff like that. But as we go into the next part, of course, is like how. Okay, so we know that press is useful. We're not sure if it's important yet, but how exactly do we get press? And I like to like the first thing I'm always going to talk about first is you gotta start with research, people. We have to start there. There's no other way, because and Nora, of course, I'm sure can attest to this as well, is that so many of you are just like, yo, I want to land on a blog. I want to be on a podcast. I want to be interviewed, this, and this. I want to be on a playlist, but you don't even know where you want to be posted at. You just want to be posted. And I get, and okay. Then the next level after that, well, I want to be on Complex or Fader or insert giant publication here. And it even there, that still requires a deeper level of research, because you need to know who's covering your music, who you're going to be talking to and stuff like that. And again, it helps build the relationship, which we'll talk about later. But start by doing your research. Figure out who covers the type of music that you're creating. Start there before just kind of throwing stuff out there, because it's even these days, it's unfortunate. I see so many of you out here like hoping to be covered just by somebody, and I get that. But you've got to be proactive in trying to obtain that coverage.
Yeah, and so how do you do that research, right? And I know a lot of artists hate the who do you sound like, or who's another artist that's similar to you, because everyone thinks that they're unique. But who do you sound like? Who's writing about, what am I trying to say? Who do you sound like? Whose musical lane is similar to yours? Then find who's written about those artists, and those are the writers that you should reach out to. And I think one of the places where folks make the biggest mistake is that they only look at the biggest publications. Well, the biggest publications are going to go after the biggest names, but and is not going to give you the conversion that you're looking for. So Ish is asking, this is a great question, right? Ish is
An
asking,
amazing question.
do local papers still mean anything or no? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
112 and 76%, like for sure they do. And I'll tell you, I know, right? My math is off, whatever. But like it really, really does, because one, those smaller outlets, those smaller places that are maybe niche or hyper local, those are the places that have the most engaged active bases, right? Those, what are you laughing at?
I just wrote down the number that you said.
We're just
like, wait a minute.
Anyways, so those niche blogs, those hyper local or kind of smaller, but like really their fans are there, really supporting them, their customers, their audience is there. That tells you something about that fan base. And that's the kind of fan base that you want. The person that's reading the local paper is the person that's going to support a local artist, is tapped into local happenings. So you might not get in front of 7 million people, but you'll get in front of 700 people who then are going to take the actions that you want them to take as a result of seeing you in that local paper or in that niche blog or whatever it might be. And so don't overlook small, local, niche, whatever word we want to use there. So absolutely, Ish, to your question, do local papers still mean anything or no? Yes, they 100% do, as does college radio or college newspapers or things like that. Anything kind of with a small market, you're going to get a much bigger return.
Exactly. And the thing with local paper, I literally just had a client land on the front page of his local paper up in Canton. And of course, HCM Corp, we'll get to your question in just a second. And listen, as a journalist who started locally, like, people are paying attention to that stuff. And second, especially in this age, okay, there's two things to think about here. First off, I think a lot of artists are so focused on like the hardcore music writer fan that's like on the biggest, best blog. But there are so many casual fans that have no idea what Complex even is,
right,
but are reading their local paper. And you would even be surprised how many people that read the local paper that'll just tap in because, oh my goodness, I didn't realize we had an artist in our town that was doing stuff like that. And then now you're getting tapped in to people, to again, real people that you usually aren't even into that type of lane. And then secondly, you can still bring that local newspaper on digitally on your social media and all your platforms, and now they're happy for you, even if they don't even live near you. And oh my goodness, my voice giving out on me. And if you play your cards right, you'd be surprised how many people, when you put it on social media, are like, yo, can you get me a copy and send that to me? Because I have no way of actually getting that paper. So local newspapers still mean anything. Like, it's so easy to like be like, oh yeah, journalism dying, and it is. But like, there are still people that are writing and covering good things and that want to see artists win. They're still out there. You're looking at two of them right now.
I mean, this is also, and maybe this gets to HCM's question around what's the best way to get press as an artist who conceals their identity as a part of their brand. And I think we should do a whole episode on like artists who want to be mysterious, because I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about it. But
right.
One of the ways to make sure that you're getting the press and getting those stories is to really be clear about, other than, hey, I'm a musician and I'm making music, what is the story that you have to tell? Are you doing activism work, or are you talking about something that no one's talked about before, or did you do an event that no one else is whatever it might be. Shout out to Eric who's here. Linda says through. So knowing that in addition to music, and this is part of like your brand building, right, is what are you about? What makes you different from everybody else? Because when you pitch to a writer, or you pitch to a podcast, or you pitch to whatever it might be, they can't just talk about your music for 30 minutes. They can't do, like, especially if your audience doesn't know you and your music isn't making those waves, there's got to be something else. And so really knowing what your story is and framing that context for whoever's going to talk to you or talk about you is going to help you stand out. Yeah,
Right.
we really should do an episode. Linda says artists
Absolutely.
should be mysterious in this day and age. Yeah, we should. Episode coming. I'm going to make a note of it after this.
Right. And listen, I do think there is a way to go about getting press while trying to conceal your identity. I get that. Like, we've seen that. But if you actually like between people like producers like Evie and even Knowledge for a second, Captain Murphy before he really like put his stuff out there. If you look at all of those cases, they still were making sure that you knew what kind of person they were or what they were into. It wasn't just, yeah, bro, I'm dropping that dope music, but I'm also mysterious. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. And I actually love that type of stuff. I actually love it. But there's also there's context behind all of that that gets people interested to begin with. So again, there's a way to do it, but again, you still have to put yourself out there. You still have to kind of show who you are to an extent, even if you're trying to be, mysterious. I totally get it, and we are going to do an episode on that because we've actually kind of run into a form of that question a couple times. Actually, I'm writing it down.
I'm going to say something. I added it to our Sto and I have a spreadsheet that has everything organized. So the last thing I'm going to say about that, and then we'll bring us back on track, is you think about someone like MF Doom. Doom was a great example.
Exactly,
right?
Yeah.
But Doom had a whole character. So even though we didn't really know much about Doom as a person, we knew about this character that he was playing in the world. And the character itself was relatable, and there was a story behind it, and there was context. And that's not to mention that we knew about Doom before he became Doom. So there's a backstory there too. So sometimes we see artists who have become mysterious after they've had some kind of establishment. So, again, it's the storytelling. But bringing us back, Ches says, while research is key, I just find my capacity, time, energy, etc. is limited. I do think artists should create their own press opportunities if possible. And I think that's a real thing, right? So you touched upon this, like there is a difference between making your own press, right? So making your own press is writing your newsletter, it's curating your website, it's putting out, running a Discord, a lot of the social media stuff that artists use, that is your own press. I also think so doing external press, part of the value of that is it's going to put you in front of people that don't know you already, right? So it's a way to expand your market. It's a way to get in front of people. There's a different cachet to your own press versus external press. And so for me, that key is if you have oftentimes artists will put their limited capacity behind things that don't serve them.
Yeah, that's usually the case.
And so I understand we're all maxed out and we're busy, but if you take 10 minutes a day to do that research and another 5 minutes to build a human to human relationship with one of those writers that you want to connect with and interact with them in a meaningful way, and 20 minutes a month or a week to like put a proper press kit together or write a good press release, that's like less than an hour of your time that's going to give you a way greater return than if you keep doing the thing that you've always been doing that puts you, so this is when we talk about like investing in yourself, and it's financial investment, but there's also these kind of time investments around what is going to give you the biggest return. So I don't want to reject the idea that like we're all tired and busy and stressed, but there also comes a decision point where you have to decide where is the best use of your time. And sometimes these kind of administrative research, mundane things is the best use of your time in the earlier stages of your career, because that's the thing that's going to move you forward versus doing the thing that's easy and feels good and gives you like an immediate satisfaction, immediate gratification, but actually isn't moving your career in the way that you want it or think that it is.
And with this stuff, like this is how you create those press opportunities, and we totally get it. Like, we're not saying like, all right, spend 10 hours right now in front of your computer and do all this stuff. Like, no, but there's like right now, you can definitely search some stuff in the search bar and follow a couple writers that cover the type of stuff that you're making. That takes less than 10 minutes, you know? And so yeah, it is sometimes about where you're putting your energy. And so going back to something that Nora mentioned about following and supporting the people, the writers that you're hoping cover your art and press. Now, I do want to focus on this for just a second, because a lot of people think when I'm saying this that I'm meaning like, yeah, you're supposed to like, you know, buddy up and like, you know, really be like spamming them and like, yeah, like sucking up to these writers and stuff like that. And no one is saying that. It's more so just about genuinely like building a rapport and a relationship with someone that you're trying that you are trying to get something from. You've got to understand, like, a lot of these people that are doing press are getting bombarded every single day with people begging to cover their music. But the people, at least for me, as someone who's been doing this for almost 2 decades now, it always stands out when people are just simply polite and actually approach as a human. That's it. The minute I'm realizing you're spamming, the minute someone realizes that you're sending the same damn message to every single person, like, it's not a genuine connection. It's a lot easier to work with an artist when they're ready to go and prepared. Just shooting me a link and be like, yeah, new album out now. Check it out, bro. Let me know what you think.
Wait, sorry. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about
Yeah.
the difference between spamming a writer and actually, or any kind of, right, spamming a platform,
Right,
and actually pitching a story, right? So the difference is when you send an, and we have a whole episode about spam, and I really want you all to go watch it. But when all you do is send the link and you say, yo, write about me, or check this out, that gives the writer
nothing to work with
at all.
Nothing.
And you're not even actually clearly asking for a write-up or an interview or what it is that you're asking for. So a well-written pitch, and pitch is like an actual word, right? Like, it means something. It means you are pitching a story idea. So not just, hey, write about my song, but what is it that you're writing, right?
And then hold on, let me cut in just real quick with a question for the pitch, because some artists hear that and they think, oh, well, so you want me to write the story for you? That's not what a pitch is.
No.
That's not what a pitch is. Keep going, Nora.
No, but that's really a good differentiation to make, right? A pitch is not that you're writing the story, but you're giving the writer the context so that they know what they should write the story about, what questions they should do, what research they should do. So a pitch will say, hey, Sto, I read your work on Everybody's Hip Hop label and really liked what you wrote about this artist and this artist. I think you'll like my work because it connects to this in the same way. I have
Right.
a project that references this artist. I talk about these things, and I think you might be interested because of how I'm doing this thing that no one else is doing. And you specify what that is. And then you make a clear ask and say, I've sent you my song and my bio and my press kit and my links. So in that pitch, you send everything that you need so that the writer or whoever the media, the journalist is, has everything they need from you in one place. So they don't have to go searching all over the internet. So they don't have to keep coming back to you for asking. You give them the photos, and you say, hey, I would love for you to do an interview about this because I have a lot to say. Or I would love for you to do a review of this album. Or I would love for you to write the story about what's happening in my town because music isn't happening here in the way that it's happening in major cities, or whatever it is. You give them the idea. And I love seeing these comments that people are sharing about, oh, I didn't know what a pitch was. And that's part of it, right? Like, a lot of us use these words. We don't know what they mean. This is the other one that Eric is sharing. Follow the submission guidelines. So someone might be open to a DM. Someone else might say, use this form. Someone else might say, do X, Y, and Z. If you do the research, a lot of writers or journalists have those channels. Follow directions. It goes a
Please,
really
please. Like we say this so often in so many different episodes because so many artists just simply do not do that. Follow the direct, because then what happens is like again, it goes back to what we were saying earlier. Writers and podcasts, et cetera, get bombarded with so many tracks and stuff like that. You immediately set yourself apart simply by following directions. It's not even that difficult. Now, that's not to say, again, we're not saying that guarantees you're going to get posted, but it does set you apart. Especially again, if you've built a relationship with the person in the past and stuff like that, and you've done all that, then your submission stands out when you do make that pitch versus just being like, yo, bro, here's a link, check it out. It's fire, bro.
I'm gonna say I love.
Yeah, we got a couple questions rolling in. Yeah, we really appreciate this. This is exactly what we were hoping for when we did this episode.
No, I love that I really do love that y'all are here.
Right.
And if you're still here, subscribe, like the channel, all that good stuff. We're talking a lot about pitching to journalists. The other thing there's a lot of podcasters out there who are literally like so hungry for guests. If you go on, and I know a lot of people don't use Facebook anymore, but it's still one of the most popular platforms around the world.
It is the number one most popular platform. Don't sleep on it, even though it's absolutely awful and annoying.
But Facebook groups is actually a great place. Find podcaster groups and pitch yourself. There are entire Facebook groups where podcasters are looking for guests, and you can go and guest on 25 podcasts this month if you wanted to. That's still a valuable place for you to be on. So that's the other thing. I know we're talking a lot about like written journalists, but that's another place. Or searching, again, coming back to research and searching, like, what's it called? Journal requests or journalist requests, and see who's putting out these requests, and is it appropriate for you? HCM Court is asking, is it bad to pitch a song that has been previously released? Do writers prefer exclusive songs?
Previously released stuff, again, you really just got to go by the guidelines set. Because seriously, everyone's different. I know for me specifically, I try to make sure that like sometimes I'll be like, hey, pitch any song you've ever written or ever created or whatever. But sometimes I'll be like, hey, only if you've dropped it in the last 3 months or only if you've dropped it this year. So it's, you really just have to, again, do your research first. And then again, like me and Nora talk about this a lot in all of our episodes about experimenting. And so sometimes like choose a platform, like, and pitch that previous song. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. If it doesn't work in a few places, like, hey, like maybe we try a different strategy. That's not to say that you give up on the song. We have plenty of episodes talking about how you can repurpose previously released music. All right, let's go to the next one before I keep blabbering on.
No, this is the one thing I'm going to add about that question too is part of this goes to the context that we talk about. So if a song was released 20 years ago and you want me to write about it today, that's fine. But tell me why. Maybe you wrote about something 20 years ago and it's tied to a pop culture moment today. Or you wrote about something 20 years ago and it's tied to current events today. In your pitch, make that connection. So then I know why you're bringing this old song back or why it would be relevant to today's audience. So again, the timeline doesn't always matter, and definitely not around exclusivity, but the story does matter. Okay, the next question. Ches asks, what do you think about platforms like Submit Hub, etc.? Are online or college radio still active? I find platforms truly willing to support indies are scarce.
Yikes.
We're going to talk about that last.
Yeah, we're going to go in all three. Jeez. But yeah, especially that last one. So platforms like Submit Hub, I don't think there's anything wrong with them, but you got to remember they're getting bombarded even more than, a lot of other, because a lot of people have kind of tried to migrate over to Submit Hub. There's nothing wrong with it. But again, it's like, you have to really think about where you're putting your energy. Online and college radio still active? Absolutely. Again, it's really about doing your research. Actually, college radio is like super duper cooper active, and online radio is absolutely super duper active. maybe not necessarily in the same form of just like pull up like an online, internet stream, but between Twitch, between YouTube, between pirate radio and stuff like that, it's all over the place. And then I find platforms truly willing to support indies are scarce. Come on, man.
I mean, there's literally people in this chat right now.
Right now.
If you want to show yourself, you can, and invite people.
Right.
I'm not going to call names, but there are, and I think,
and they're everywhere.
And I think part of the narrative is when we say things like platforms willing to support indies are scarce, we make them more invisible versus saying, hey, I don't know any who can put me on, and then we uplift all those platforms, right? So this is part of where like collaboration, promotion, cross-pollination. Sorry, it's been a long day and my brain is moving way faster than my mouth. But that's where those things are important, because we are dealing with quality over quantity in these cases. And so it's not that they don't exist. We just have to do the work, take on the responsibility of amplifying. It's why Sto and I, every episode, are like, if this was helpful to you, please share it, because that's how we amplify these things. Because we are an indie, we're an indie platform.
Right.
And so I want to share what Eric said, that there are platforms willing to support indies. The flip side is that indies need to be willing to rock with those platforms as well, right? It really is, y'all, a symbiotic relationship.
110%. Sorry, I wasn't trying to cut you off. Sorry.
No, but that's it. It is 110%, 25, 46 million percent, a symbiotic relationship. And part of the opportunity here, and again, why tapping into like smaller platforms that are starting out the same way you're starting out is important, is what Eric touches on here, is that you can grow with them.
Right.
Like, that's part of the relationship building, right? When we can say, oh, we put so-and-so on our festival when we were starting out and they were starting out. And now look, we've grown and they've grown and we came up together. Like, there's a story there and a connection there. And the same thing happens with blogs and podcasts and interviews and Instagram lives and all these things. And so don't sleep on things just because it's not the biggest.
And yeah, to just immediately refute that point, there's so many independent artists that are being covered at this exact moment on a plethora of platforms. So, again, it's really about sitting down and doing your research for a second and really figure out, okay, who's covering these people, and then go from there, because chances are there's someone out there who is willing to cover your music. It's just, again, press, whether big or small, is really useful. All right, we're at the half-hour mark so far, which is kind of wild. So we'll kind of wrap up here, because it's a perfect time to get to the last part of this. But it's just simply the fact that you don't necessarily need press to be a successful artist. And I think a lot of artists, potentially even some of the ones like in the chat right now, have it backwards and think, oh, well, if I land on insert blog here, my career is going to skyrocket. And it did not work like that necessarily shot for shot back in the blog era. And it definitely does not work like that right now. Press does not like blow you up to this astronomical level. It's useful. It can it's like we were talking about earlier, it's a resume builder and stuff like that. It's useful for your supporters. It's stuff you can use for genuinely the rest of your career. But you can be a successful artist without landing all types of crazy press.
It's a tool. So, and this is the part, right? Like, and this is why you should not pay for press. And if you pay for press, you're buying an advertisement and it's not integral journalism. Because if you think, oh, I'm going to get this placement and 1 million people are going to see me and then I'm going to become famous, that's not how it works. That's not the cause and effect. So it does hold.
And we agree. It holds legitimacy. Like I mean, especially me, like as a journalist who covers, like, hot damn, I have 4 books covering 100 different independent artists. Like, press holds legitimacy for sure, but it's definitely nothing you should solely rely on. And you're not, you can, again, be successful as an artist without landing press. And what you'll find out is a lot of press is late to the party. It is never press breaking an artist. That is, I mean, I'm not saying that didn't happen back in the blog era. It probably did to an extent, but like, even with like the prime example, everybody's like, oh, acid rap is like the indie darling. And it really is. It really is. But Complex didn't debut the project. They came late as it started to blow up. And we're like, oh shit, we need to cover that because that'll get us more views. That's usually how press works. So yeah.
First of all, shout out Ches for the donation. Thank you. Sto and I do this for the really for the love.
Yeah, we really do appreciate that.
Change the culture. So thank you. And I think this is the part is like if just because you don't see the media doesn't mean that other people aren't seeing it. That's what I hope
exactly
about indies. And it's okay that you're not seeing it because you might not be the audience for that crowd, but somewhere else, someone else is, which is what HCM was saying earlier. And also, I just love the way y'all are supporting each other in this conversation. Like, this really is how the industry can be. This kind of support, this kind of connection. You just got to find the communities that fit your niche, that are talking about.
They're out there.
And that's all. Like, that's all you need. But to your point, to what Sto was saying, press is not going to make or break you. It's not going to get that press placement and you're going to blow up overnight. It's a tool and you can use it strategically to tell your story. You can use it strategically to get your legitimacy. You can use it strategically to kind of establish your legitimacy or validity in the space. But it's not the beginning. Right. And so when you think about how much time, energy, resources that you have, right, going back to our conversation about capacity, this is also part of where you decide where does press fit in for you strategically. And maybe it's not the most important thing right now, and that's okay. But know that it's one of many tools in your toolbox.
Exactly. All right. Yeah, I think that was a really nice episode. I'm really glad that we finally did this one. If you all have any other questions, leave it down below. Leave any tips. Some of you watching this have already gotten press in the past. Leave your tips below and let us know what you think. Leave it in. The only other part I'll throw in is like in that research, there are plenty of articles out there. I'm pretty confident. It's been a minute since I posted one, but that post that have a list of blogs that are covering music of your genre. So use that. I'm pretty sure I've seen one that had well over like 200 blogs. Like, I'm not saying to spam the same damn list, but there are resources out there to use. You just got to take a second to use them.
But don't pay for email lists where they just give you
don't do that.
Addresses. Like, y'all, thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for all your questions. Really, like, this is like, we want this to be as much of a community. Thank you for all the ways you support us. As like I said, if you're watching this, please subscribe, please share, but also definitely share your own tips. What's worked for you? What are outlets that people should check out, or things like that? And we definitely have an episode about how to use press. So watch that. That will be linked below. Oh, thank you. Oh, I'm just going to share this because I just love the love. A great episode. Looking forward to the next one. It's nice to see you highlight and respond to our comments. This is like, because we want y'all, like, this is for you all.
Right.
Okay. I'm hyped. I'm really excited. Thank you all for hanging out with us. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks, everyone.
Peace, everyone.